folks, this is Ray, and today we are celebrating the third episode of the NerdCast. And a NerdCast wouldn't be a NerdCast without another nerd. Let's welcome another member of our CrowdSec chat. Hello there.
Hello there, thank you for having me.
Of course. Could you introduce yourself for just, so people get to know you?
Hey, I am Stetsed. I am a home labber and try to self-host services to try to get more freedom and more control of my own data.
Okay, so you are also infected with self-hosting in particular. What kicked you off? Is it the Christmas spirit?
Wait, what did you say, sorry?
What kept you going for opting for the self-hosting route? Was it the Christmas spirit?
No, it was mostly paranoia on privacy.
So you did read the terms of services. That was a mistake I already did as well, and that got me started. And what is it with Christmas today? Do you join in the celebrations already?
Yes, we have. Well, we already have a Christmas tree in the hall. We already have that, which is way too big. It doesn't fit, but hey ho. And we are going to be celebrating it on the 24th with presents. However, a little bit of an early Christmas present.
Oh.
Framework laptop.
Nice. What I have here is a decorated microphone stand already. Let me get that in view. Boink. And we have the Christmas ornament hanging from there.
Nice.
We did run out of space for a Christmas tree, so I just did it the old-fashioned nerdy way and use what you have.
Hey, if it works, it works.
Basically, yes. Hey there, Moreta. Welcome to the NerdCast. And today we are discussing a bit the Christmas spirit. What are you hosting on, if I may ask?
Well, if you can see right behind me, it is a Dell R530 PowerEdge.
Oh. So, basically you bought it used?
Yes, definitely used. New, it would be a little bit too expensive for my limited budget. I was able to buy the server itself for, I think, around 300 euros, which was for its price. And because basically the problem with servers is I find that the only, the R710s and those generation, there is no real upgrade path.
Yeah, I know the problem. I still feel the pain, because at some point I had to just build a new server here, because I ran out of options as well.
Yeah, so I basically decided I want to get something from the newer generation, so that's the Dell RX 30 series, or the, we're looking at HP, but don't look at HP.
HP, I've got issues with HP, personal issues, because I had to maintain them for a couple of generations, and in the end it was just a couple of awkward chips that drove me off, and second, it was the amount of plastic.
Yeah, no, because I generally, because I've also heard from the HP side that they limit, they have hardware limits, so you can only use HP components, which...
Yeah, once you're in bed with them.
Yeah, so I was just I want to get something Dell, I want to get something which I can upgrade, because this server is currently running two E5 2670 V3s.
Mm-hmm.
So those are each 8-core 16-thread processors at 3.2 gigahertz base, 3.6 gigahertz boost, so they're actually pretty high speed as well.
Let me ask you, what are you hosting? What are you using?
Well, I host quite a bit of stuff. I basically split it into two sections. There's the private and the public. Because because I recently also decided to start hosting some public applications for public use, as I have the specs, so I decided why not do it. So to start off, we have the private, which is mostly my media stack, which involves Jellyfin, Sonar, Radar, Prowler.
So the usual suspects.
Which I use for the legal acquisition of Linux ISOs.
And I think it was offsite storing of other people's backups, right? Because you're a social person.
What did you say, sorry?
My impression was that you offered your hardware to other people to as a kind of an offsite storage to host their media.
I haven't yet started doing that. Currently, I just have a few services which people can use, such as CryptPad, Knitter, Surex, LibReddit, Invidious, and Gatia.
That is actually awesome. If you think about my stuff, what I'm running here is my public web server, and also I run my little, well, what I'd call home infrastructure, like a domain structure for managing a couple of Windows boxes, LDAP for logins and stuff like that. You use that as well?
I do have centralized authentication in the form of Authentic, which I use the forward proxying for being able to access my services. So basically, to add a layer of authentication to some services. For example, my Proxmox and such services would be behind Authentic.
Just saying, Proxmox is also my poison of choice because of the obvious reason you get the VMware feeling package and it just works. That's just the beauty of it, right?
Yeah, honestly, it's insane that it's open source, which
it is.
And like, it's not even that they could have very easily closed sourced it and it would still be an amazing product, but they've open sourced it and it's free unless you want like enterprise support, which is amazing.
To me, it is the most ingenious thing out there because you can really, I mean, just compared to the VMware EXI 3, where you can't really do backups, you can't do jack shit unless you shove them a lot of money their way. And by a lot of money, I mean around $5,000 if I remember that correctly.
Ooh, that hurts. That hurts.
That does, yes, especially in their home lab. Do you do something for? I mean, do you still rely on external services?
Yes, I do, because I recently decided I didn't want my home IP to be revealed by my public services, because even though there's a low chance anybody would ever DDoS or something, I don't want to run the risk.
Why? I mean, nothing beats a DDoS attack in the morning to kick the frustration up to a level that's acceptable for the average nerd. I mean, you have to be pissed off to be a nerd, right?
Yeah, okay, that's fair. No. But so I'm currently relying on, well, for DNS, I'm using Njala. We'll definitely shout them out. Njala, one of my favorite DNS providers that exists out there.
Just saying, we are here not sponsored by any one of those, so this is our personal opinion, just trying to focus on that again. So you are using a third-party DNS?
Yeah, I decided hosting my own DNS root servers would rely me to be a lot, because currently my uptime is I think about 99.99%. But even that, for hosting like core infrastructure components like my DNS, it's just not worth it to run that myself.
I've just jumped in and I've hosted my own DNS just because I could, and I have to admit it's worth it. Saves you a lot of hassle. But that's just my personal opinion, and you know, we are heavily biased through what we've gone through.
Yeah, because and the only real external service I rely on is my Hetzner VPS, which I use as a basically proxying point, which then enters my home network. So there's a WireGuard tunnel set up from the VPS to my home network, and then from there it connects into my home network and reverse proxies all my services.
Gosh, that's freaking fancy. Just gonna say that. I've got a small subnet here with a couple of IP addresses, 8 it is currently. And, 2 are gone for network and broadcast. Then there's the gateway, so it's 4 left for me. That's usually what it is. And so I ended up with 4 IP addresses on my firewall. And I'm going with that. So...
That's fancy. 4 IP addresses. I only have 1.
I'm really glad I have it, because I would never ever want to have a mail server sitting on my web server. Same IP address, bad neighborhood, blacklisting. Which brings me to
that's
topic.
true.
Our favorite topic. Llama or not to llama?
Of course the llama. Yes, the llama.
Llama ding dong. I also use CrowdSec, and I have to admit I did some stats, and on my old server it enabled me really to run one whole virtual machine, just to have the resources not wasted by script kiddies and bots. That is so amazing. So,
honestly, CrowdSec is such a nice tool, and it also being open source and open development, because like the CrowdSec people, you can quite often see like the team just talking to people in Discord and just asking for advice. Like,
oh yeah,
it's really nice to open there.
Oh yes, I've seen that a lot with Klaus and anyone out there. They are so open-minded, and they say, and they're inviting you as well. Like, hey, have a look at this. What do you think? Give me your 2 cents. And we're sitting there like it's like a family. So that's awesome. And thinking back about the hosting topic, you said you're hosting a couple of public services as well. What's your setup? I mean, you're tunneling everything through your VPS right now, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So think about it like this. You would have to start from scratch right now, and you would have the possibilities that you have right now. Think about your knowledge and stuff like that. What would you do differently?
Oh, that is an interesting question. Well, first of all, I would say don't start with Raspberry Pis.
Don't get me started. Especially about the price right now. I've seen them, or I guess the price went up for 5 times by now. I remember my first Raspberry Pis, they were like $35 or something around that, and not more than $50, and now they are at 150 and even more. So that's freaking scary.
Yeah, because for example, I don't have it anymore. I have one Raspberry Pi still running, an 8 gig, but I used to have a 4 gig Raspberry Pi, and I bought it for I think €100, which was kind of insane. And like that was a reasonable price at the time, but by the time that I resold it, because I didn't have a use for it anymore, I sold it for like 120.
That pretty much reflects what's going on the chip crisis right now.
Yeah. So, it's kind of nuts.
I still run Raspberry Pis in my home. One is currently a backup DNS server in-house because I run Pi-hole. And there was that big debate going on with, Edgard and Pi-hole. What's your take on it?
Look, I have not actually heard that debate.
They are basically the same thing. Just Edgard is a bit more polished.
Edgard Home. Edgard Home.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So honestly, my opinion on it is that they're both good pieces of software. It's just what you want to choose, because Pi-hole is very lightweight and doesn't have a whole lot of components, but also doesn't have a whole lot of features built in by default. Like, for example, Edgard has by default DNS crypt resolvers, DNS over HTTPS. It has support for DNS over HTTPS, and the support for all these different types of protocols, while Pi-hole is more centered to be, it's a DNS server, don't make it overcomplicated.
I'm on the same page with you on that, because I run DNS dist as a big load balancing DNS front end that you have to run it with Power DNS. And I just decided that I could wire in my Pi-hole there as a DNS over HTTP and DNS over TLS for my smartphone and have ad blocking on the way. This is something I noticed that I can use. And I don't see the big need for AdGuard there, because I would need to send it through my proxy anyways. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get what you mean, but it's more like, what do you want? Like, they're both good pieces of software in the end.
Yeah.
They're both good pieces.
I mean, to me it's like this: if you are putting out a service for without the need for a VPN, that's why I'm choosing HTTPS, just to eliminate that layer of VPN, because I don't want to use it if I don't need it. You know, it's just another layer. It's just limiting the traffic rate and stuff like that. And AdGuard per se, to me, isn't a full-blown web server like an Nginx handling loads of HTTPS requests. But that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I agree on most of what you just said, but I am gonna have to disagree on not like a VPN being a limiting factor, because the only way, in my opinion, that a VPN is a limiting factor is if the network doesn't allow them. Because technology...
I just see the overhead, you know?
Yeah, that's true, but like the overhead on a protocol like WireGuard is so little for the speed. Like, I can get easily gigabit speeds over WireGuard.
Point taken.
So, while I do think there is overhead, the overhead for like a protocol like OpenVPN, I understand it is pretty inefficient for the amount of for the data rates. Mm-hmm. But for a efficient protocol like WireGuard, a lightweight protocol, I don't really see it being an overhead.
Yeah, to me, I just see it as an additional burden I have to deal with.
Yeah, true. It's still another piece of software that's running, I guess. That's true.
Yeah.
But it's definitely, WireGuard is definitely a lot better than softwares like OpenVPN, for example.
Yeah, it can be. Please elaborate on that.
So it's mostly the simplicity. WireGuard is just, you have a public-private key, and you can port forward, and then you're done. It's incredibly easy to set up, and while OpenVPN can be simple, it can also be incredibly complex if you don't. For example, do you know the software PyVPN?
Yes, I do.
That makes it pretty simple to install an OpenVPN server. But setting up an OpenVPN server manually is, in my experience, pretty complicated. And the last time that I tried to do it, pretty complicated.
I have OpenVPN running because I run pfSense, and it was just easy as a client exporter and done. So I don't really.
Oh yeah, true. But then it's a wizard, so it's okay, true. I was more referring to manually setting it up on like a Linux box.
Just a second, we'll have to get rid of a guy here that was just trying to compensate for something.
Oh yeah, I saw it.
OpenVPN is too bloated. Yes and no. I just see the problem with compatibility at some point. But yeah, I agree. It can be a bit of but I can tunnel it using HTTP as a port and get through a lot of proxies. Not sure about that on WireGuard because I didn't really look into that.
That's the one thing that I do notice, is that the WireGuard protocol, due to how it's designed, it's not made to be obfuscated. Due to how it's designed, it is pretty easy to get blocked by networks. Like, for example, my school network does block it.
I think for a good reason.
I disagree.
Why?
Because blocking VPNs on a school network means that anybody who has data or has mobile data, any of the students who have mobile data and want to use a VPN can do so at their free will. But any students who don't and need to use the Wi-Fi aren't able to use a VPN in any way because of the school blocking it.
To me, usually a definite a block is a challenge to just overcome it usually. And when I was back in school, I remember we had something like a proxy service running there transparently, trying to do some parental controls. And I think you get the idea, right? So it was the Ask Melissa search engine back there that was the most feared thing by our teachers. And it was in the 90s, so just think about it like this. And it was really a challenge for me.
Yeah, true. No, but like, it isn't like I can't, but for example, if I were to want to bypass the network, I would use a protocol which is like specifically designed to do that, which I would, for example, need the Shadow Socks protocol. It's very good at bypassing firewalls due to how it's designed. So, for like, because I recently looked at the Outline VPN, which was made by Google in collaboration with Google, and it uses the Shadow Socks protocol, which is incredibly powerful, and it can bypass most network blocks, network restrictions, especially if you run it on port 443, because you'll see that quite a few networks just straight up block any port that isn't 443.
Yeah, it's the public networks, and I remember when I was doing the Linux Day in Berlin and in Dornbirn, what we did was really just blocking a couple of ports for like 25, the SMTP port, just for sanity reasons.
Yeah, that's fair. That would get spammed to hell and back.
Yes, but nowadays it's not really popular anymore, and nobody really uses anything besides HTTPS. That's the feeling I get. Because, webmails and stuff like that.
Yeah, honestly, HTTPS, I don't remember the last figures, but especially since because what I've heard is, especially since Let's Encrypt got curated and basically provided free SSL certificates on a mass scale, I think SSL adoption skyrocketed just because it was free. You didn't have to pay for certificates.
I was originally playing around with CA Cert, if you remember that. I was basically certifying people. It was something like a Web of Trust they built, and it was kind of complicated, and you had to import the CA anyways. So Let's Encrypt was the first big step into just encrypt it because you can.
Yeah, that's true, and it's a good thing because HTTPS should be used everywhere where it can be.
Yeah. And what I think is really with the protocol stuff, VPNs and stuff is fine if you are. I think about computers like this, a smartphone, and I don't want to put additional burden on the smartphone to, let's say, open a VPN and then going, let's say, HTTPS over it. Because that would just be double trouble.
I would agree if WireGuard didn't exist, because it used to be that, for example, OpenVPN, I remember testing it. I could get like a maximum on an iPad Mini 4. I could get a maximum speed of about 200 megabytes, which, with the limit that I could reach of 800, is an incredible down performance.
I agree.
But with protocols like WireGuard also being built into the kernel and kernel modules insanely accelerating the speeds of those protocols, it's means that the speed can be much higher. Even like that, the WireGuard isn't the problem, it's your network speed which actually becomes the problem again.
Yeah, that reminds me a bit of HTTP 3, where we just say, due to the network, let's say, to the nature of the internet, because we have to include everything and stuff like that, you know, we have to redesign the HTTP protocol to just serve things, if you know what I mean. It's like, you have to include jQuery, you have to include Google Fonts, you have to include, you know, A to Z.
What do you mean? I don't understand, sorry.
HTTP 3 was designed to fix a problem that appeared because of we had to include anything in the HTTP protocol, like, you know, in a website where you sideload Google Fonts, jQuery, all those libraries, instead of just making proper websites.
Yeah, that's true. I suppose it does become very bloated.
Yeah, and that's how I feel with WireGuard right now, because if I'm working off-site, I usually don't need that huge amount of data. I just need a secure connection at some point. So speed is not always the factor for me. But that's just a personal thing here.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. That you don't always need the entire VPN connection's power. But that's also what WireGuard can. Oh, yeah. No, sorry. No, but that's also what I like about WireGuard is you can, by default in the WireGuard protocol, using allowed IPs, you can say this traffic goes there. This traffic goes there, and you could have multiple peers on a single WireGuard connection.
Yeah, that's something. That's something I still have to look at, because I'm used to really using it the interface way on my main firewall. But I'm a bit old-fashioned. I started my IT career back in 1986, so
you're old.
Yeah. I was about to phrase it like that.
No, but honestly, because for example, on my server, on my VPS, I just have a WireGuard connection which I just have a WireGuard connection which only forwards 192.168.1.0. And that's my home network, and that's the only thing it needs to forward. Everything else can go via the public internet.
I mean, that makes sense, yes. So the policy routing is something where you offload it to the WireGuard.
Yeah. So you don't need to have that on a Linux level. You don't need to have that in a firewalls level to do that.
I grew up like that you have the VPN concentrator on the firewall because that's your entry point, or behind the firewall, and to keep it simple like that. So, I mean, it's nice to see something that just works. On the other hand, it's a bit terrifying, I have to admit. Because you really have to dig into that, what you route where on the firewall level. And this reminds me of some, I wouldn't want to use the term clusterfuck, but that's what happened on IPv6 when people had IPv4 and v6 running, and they forgot to firewall stuff at v6. So it's basically doing everything twice.
Yeah, that is true. That's also something that some WireGuard clients don't actually implement very well, is they only redirect either IPv4 or IPv6, and if you then forget to include IPv6, you can suddenly have a massive data leak for connections.
Yeah, not only that, I mean, it's one of those things where I'm really terrified. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do get what you mean, yeah.
It's like with the policy-based routing, it's the routing is taken away from the firewall. So you have to watch out what you're routing on the VPN and implement security there as well. That's just my point.
Yeah, that's fair.
We don't have to agree on this. This is the beautiful thing on the Nerdcast. We can talk about things here and just get new ideas. I mean, I will definitely look more into WireGuard. What other security considerations do you run besides masking your IP? I mean, you could have done that with Cloudflare or whatever.
Okay. I'm gonna go a little bit on a tangent here and say you should not be using Cloudflare.
You mean like they know everything? Because
they
you go through them.
They can man in the middle all your traffic. They can completely see all traffic. They are a massive failure point of the entire internet, because if they go down, basically 90% of the internet goes down. That's an exaggeration, but a large chunk of the internet goes down.
Let me put it that way. Austria, the country where I live, they made a big mistake on blocking Cloudflare because they wanted to take down a website. And they happened to take down really a lot of things. So that was a big facepalm here.
Yeah, because so many services. I think that I don't think it was only Austria. I think another country I remember tried blocking Cloudflare, but it just blocked a whole bunch of other services.
So how do you feel about blocking on a governmental level or a global level?
The problem is that with how the internet is designed, to block something, you need to block it at multiple, because the internet usually blocks, like for example, most blocks that governments use are DNS-based blocks, but those can easily be circumvented by
your own DNS.
By your own DNS, and basically all the methods of which to block, which would allow the government to block websites, are usually basically implementing a man in the middle.
Yeah, and this is. I have to admit, I did run a proxy here that did man in the middle, just to be able to scan traffic, but with the adoption of HTTP2 and stuff like that, it was nearly impossible to do that in a sane manner anymore.
Was it HTTP2 or HTTP3 that implemented SCI encryption?
I don't know currently, but SNI was a big thing, because think about it, back then you had one IP address per SSL certificate or SSL connection in general. So you had really to buy in big times. There is one thing that I spotted here that was Robert saying, let me put that on screen. Schools should not be empowered to have the ability to read the network traffic. This also ties into workplaces. I do not like being watched. I have to admit that, just for the sake of privacy. But on the other hand, I see a reason for, if you have somebody in the States, like an orange-haired guy organizing a hands-on revolt, like the storm on the Capitol, that was kinda, putting that guy out of business is hard. Just think about the whole tinfoil hat guys. How would you deal with that? Talking about your nothing should be blocked.
Yeah, no, but that's the hard thing, that you're basically, if you want a completely open internet, you need to rely that everybody on the internet is going to be a fair party.
That's the point. I mean, we already know how Putin defines a fair party. Down in the Ukraine, at the Crimea.
Yeah, but because that's the problem, like, you're gonna... The problem is, the internet, in my opinion, should not be you should not be trying to block stuff at the internet level, as the only thing you're encouraging is people to go around that block.
Yeah, that's with the import restrictions as we see in the war today. Trying to get around it as fast as they can. And I'm not the exception to that rule. I really enjoyed my time, breaking out of the school network, just circumventing the proxy, going through. I think my most ingenious thing was encapsulating traffic in DNS packages.
Whoa, that's actually pretty smart.
Let me put it that way. It was sick AF, but it wasn't fast, but it got me to put up another tunnel through that where I can proxy same TCP/IP through. But it was still something I'm kind of proud of, and I pulled that off.
Yeah, no, that's actually pretty smart. That you could basically pack it into, because I think that's actually one of the ways to obfuscate WireGuard is putting it on port 53 and then actually making it look like UDP, because it is UDP traffic.
Yeah. So think about it like this: you have port 443, and you've got the same thing on UDP because we put everything on 443 right now. So it's pretty much impossible to distinguish traffic then.
Yes. Quick.
Just a second, you're cutting out. Could you repeat that, please?
Yeah, especially with HTTP 3 now being implemented, but honestly, HTTP 3, it's making the HTTP spec being very complicated. The HTTP spec itself should be relatively simple to implement, in my opinion.
You mean like where are the days of the simple protocol back then, right?
Yes, where you could implement it yourself if you just sit down for a bit.
Yeah, but on the other hand, if you think back on the SMTP protocol, which is still a pain in the ass due to the spam, because it wasn't really implemented properly. That's one of those things where I say it's kind of better to have a sane protocol implementation that's a bit more complicated than to have the Wild West where you define what you are appearing as.
Yeah, but SMTP, that's more a problem in how the web ecosystem is set up, and
Not
SMTP.
Really. Look about the SMTP protocol. If I'm the sender, I'm saying, hello, I am, my email address is, and I want to have you forward this email to that mailbox. And if I'm pretending to be, let's say, Elvis Presley at Microsoft.com, there is literally no way on the SMTP protocol itself to verify that without doing dodgy things like DNS requests for a TXT record, which is basically the SPF record.
Yeah, but I think that's also just because of how old the SMTP protocol is. Because the SMTP protocol started its design in 1980.
Yeah, I know, but it was simple.
Yeah, that's true. So you're basically saying that simple doesn't automatically mean good.
What I'm saying is that a couple of services need the complexibility because of what they are used for. I mean,
yeah, that's true.
Think about WebSockets. That's something HTTP was never designed to do, basically. And you attach that to get notifications to the client because a web page was just fetching data. A request one thing. Now you are basically opening a pipe, getting a lot of stuff through.
True. Yeah, true.
It's a hard world, right?
Yeah, nothing is easy anymore.
Yep. And my biggest fear right now is with the rise of Docker and all those black box networks and black box stuff, that we don't really understand anymore what's going on. Because everyone can build a Docker container, but in the end they don't really care about Kubernetes and stuff because it's a black box. They write their pod script and the magic happens.
Yeah, that is true. Like, what you might see is Docker right now relies a lot on pre-built images. If you see a lot of guides, etc., rely on pre-built images, but there's no step in those guides to actually verify that those images are what they claim to be.
Yep. And
like there is no verification. Well, no, there is verification that it's the requested Docker container, but there's no verification. The only way to verify it is to go read the image itself.
yeah, and that's where something like a chain of trust and no trust computing comes in. Because you lose trust in your own hardware. And your own software that you're running.
Yeah, that's true.
But I would invite everyone here right now, if you want to. We are on the BrowSec Discord. Link is coming up right here, and we'll take the discussion to the Discord with you guys. So, thank you for being here, Stessus.
No problem.
So, yeah. Until next time, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Okay guys, that's it for today. And special thanks to my patrons, Daisy and Alex. Thank you that you've been there. Thank you that you've been our guest. And it was an honor to entertain you. Ray signing